Donald Trump just wrapped up his first 100 days in office speech, and as you can imagine, he went through the greatest hits, went after his political opponents, bragged about things he shouldn't be bragging about, gaslit on things he shouldn't be gaslighting on. And to break this down, we have a lot of clips from the speech. I want to bring back Jesse and Brittany, Jess Dollemore, Brittany Page. Again, thank you for being with me tonight. So let's get into this. One particularly disturbing moment that just kind of dropped in there quickly was that the crowd was chanting 3 after Trump talked about his second term.
Cross. Right, Dr. Oz? Cross that one off. Cross that one off. No, they say it all the time. When I was out, they say, well, they go on 3.
So they're chanting 3 there, and then he brought someone on stage who said, what do we think about Trump 2028?
He's the most beautiful.
Trump 2028, anybody?
Should we just, the Constitution sucks, anybody? Jesse, it looks like more and more this isn't a joke.
Well, it's not. It's not a joke. Even if it was a joke, it's not a funny joke. You don't talk about violating the United States Constitution. Donald Trump already thinks that he can amend the Constitution through executive order, and that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. It's just a flagrant admission that he wants to be a dictator, that this is an authoritarian power grab. And unfortunately, we live in a system where the Supreme Court has given him carte blanche to act as criminally as he wants without consequence. So it's very, very scary times because Donald Trump has no checks to his power.
That's a good way to put it. It's not a joke, and if it were, it's not a funny one. And that's how we talked about this, before we started covering Trump live, his speech, that constantly the way they defend their outrageous statements is by saying either it's a joke or we're not being serious, up until they are. Like, oh, we're not serious about ignoring the judiciary, up until they start ignoring the judiciary, to give people a sense of the general tone and message Trump was touting his first 100 days. Despite the disaster that we've all experienced it to be, as the greatest thing ever.
And we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and that's according to many, many people. This is the best, they say, 100-day start of any president in history, and
At one point, he said that someone described it as the most consequential. That could be true, but consequentially bad. What are sort of your headline takeaways, just given that he kind of gave his big take there of the speech after watching it? Brittany, maybe want to start?
In terms of how his first 100 days have been consequential, but in the negative.
Yeah, or just the speech in general.
Yeah, I mean, it was filled with lies. It was filled with disturbing statements. It was filled with racism, all of the things that we've come to expect from Donald Trump. But you're right in that him saying that some people are calling his first 100 days the most consequential, but in a bad way, because we're talking about defunding essential programs, essential vaccine programs, essential health research. We're talking about billion-dollar cuts to federal food aid that are sending charitable organizations into a panic of how they're going to feed seniors, how they're going to feed children. He's making cuts to Meals on Wheels. I mean, the programs that they're going after are the programs that help the people that Donald Trump claimed that he would help, the lower to middle income, working poor. And those are the programs that he's going after. Those are the programs that he's choosing to cut. And he's choosing to cut those programs, things like Medicaid, SNAP, to pay for his tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations.
Yeah, going back to the consequential thing, it absolutely is consequential, maybe the most consequential president, certainly the most consequential 100 days. And that's not a positive thing. It's consequential in the way that it's going to take generations to undo the damage that has been wrought and brought against the United States and our institutions and our norms and the well-being of our people. That's what consequential means in this case. It's not a positive thing.
Yeah. One sort of odd moment, I agree with you both so much, but we'll do this one real quickly. Scott Jennings, the CNN contributor, came on stage and looked like a little boy in a candy shop.
Take care of you, Scott. Scott Jennings, really great.
Thank you. Michigan. We were flying in here today, and I said, look at these farms. I got to get a farm in Michigan, because when you own as many libs as I do, you got to put a place to put them all. Thank you all very much.
Good job, Scott. We're proud of you.
Great, yeah. Fantastic joke that you just fumbled there, buddy.
You nailed it. A big, we expected him to bring this up, but we can't. It's interesting how the chaos makes it difficult to remember all the different things. Like, it's completely slipped out of my brain in different moments that he actually pardoned violent attackers who sought to overthrow our democratic process. Here he references that.
We removed senior FBI officials who were corrupt and misdirected the resources they sent to SWAT teams after grandmothers and J6 hostages, what they did to those J6 hostages. And they did nothing to the people that took over Portland.
And then on to that. Do you think, I remember like in school, you're studying history. Some things are a little bit ambiguous and there's a gray area. Do you think if we don't ultimately have them rewrite all of history, looking back upon the Trump presidency and act like that will just be obviously black, white, right, wrong?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's no way to parse out what happened. We all witnessed it. There's video evidence, there's audio evidence, there's transcripts, there's grand jury testimony, there's actual trial testimony. What took place was an abject failure of our government looking with the rear view mirror look of it. But from a historical perspective, there's no other way to look at it other than a wild attempt to overthrow the United States government by way of overturning a free, fair, settled American election. These people will go down in history as traitors, just like Donald Trump will.
Yeah. Here is Trump concerned about the water.
I need everything I can get. I don't need to be under a shower trying to get water to come out of that damn thing. So we've opened up the shower heads, the faucets, the toilets, the washing machines.
So if you've noticed that your toilet has been opened up, you can thank Donald J. Trump. Then, Brittany, before we started this little section you were referencing, I'd love for you to go back through these data points, the correct fact check of this statement from Trump.
House Republicans are working to invest more money in Medicaid than we spend today. The only thing we're going to cut is the corruption and the crooks that take advantage of some of the illegal schemes.
Brittany, he's not lying, right?
It's shocking, but yeah, he's lying again. And that's because the tax cuts that they want to give, the Republicans want to give to the wealthy and corporations, they cost money. And so when they're looking at the $1.8 trillion in tax cuts that they want to give to people that have incomes in the top 5%, so this is households with incomes above $320,000, 1.8 trillion in tax cuts, they need to pay for that somehow. And so what they're looking at, these numbers are based on reconciliation directives to House committees, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. 230 billion cuts from SNAP, that is food assistance for 40 million people. They're looking at $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid, that is health coverage for 72 million people. So while Donald Trump stands there and lies about what Republicans plan to do with Medicaid, they're lying because they know that there are going to be political consequences for making those cuts to things like food stamps and Medicaid. And that's why it's so important for people to pick up the phone and put pressure on their elected officials, because there should be political consequences to this. Republicans know there will be, and it is not popular that they are planning to cut these programs.
And everybody needs to put this number in their phone. It's 202-224-3121. That's the Capitol switchboard. It's not a difficult thing to call your congressperson. You call, you can just tell them your zip code and they can connect you through to where you are, your area code or your zip. They'll know. And you can tell them exactly the way you want them to vote. It's not a debate on the phone. You just lodge your recommendation, your desire, and then you can get off the phone.
Yeah. And interestingly, off the bat, there was more acceptance or maybe transparency, not really, but a little bit from Republicans about those cuts. And then the Bernie rallies, the AOC rallies, people calling in, the public outcry has made them, to the points both of you have been making, back off of that in their messaging. Now, it's still clearly an objective, and we can't allow their messaging to mislead people on that, but it does matter. Your voice does matter. Here's Trump saying,
and I banned all government censorship and restored free speech in America. We have free speech. We didn't have free speech.
It's genuinely sick how able he is. You said this, Brittany, right when we, or one of you did, right when we stopped, just how it's kind of disorienting watching someone. And whenever we're covering it live, you can't really jump in. So just watching someone and listening to someone so easily, willingly tell one lie after another and then project onto the other side things he's actually doing, saying that free speech, I guess, by Sleepy Joe was taken away, and that was attacked as he's actively levying one of the greatest attacks by a president on the First Amendment in American history, going after literally Chris Krebs for saying the election was secure, going after CBS and law firms that represent people he doesn't like, etc., etc. And he can still say with a straight face that he's the warrior for the First Amendment.
Not to mention the fact that they're disappearing people who write op-eds in opposition to the position of this administration relative to the Israel-Gaza, the genocide taking place there. I mean, it's an affront to truth and reason and rationality that he would make this claim, and yet the crowd wails with delight as though it's fact.
Then Trump says this.
After a lifetime of unelected bureaucrats stealing your paychecks, attacking your values, and trampling your freedoms, we are stopping their gravy train, ending their power trip, and telling thousands of corrupt, incompetent, and unnecessary deep state bureaucrats, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired. Get out of here.
Yeah, and obviously, again, another thing that it was the discussion off the bat when he started trying to freeze funds and all these different things. But even that, the undermining of and the dismantling of the federal workforce has kind of stopped being discussed to the extent that it needs to be, understanding that really the worst effects are to come because our government relies on hardworking people actually doing the stuff. Okay, legislators say, we want to invest in this and we want to create this bridge. Awesome. And then it takes people to do all of those things and to run Medicaid and to run the Social Security Administration, which is being gutted, the functioning of it and the staffing of it, and then the VA. It goes on and on. And that's one of those things that may not make it into the headlines every single day, but is going to be felt every single day, increasingly worse.
Absolutely, because they're setting up those government agencies to fail. They are making those cuts so that people become frustrated with government, so that people feel like government doesn't work. And then it just becomes this self-reinforced cycle. And that's what they are depending on. They want people to turn on the government, to think that they came in, they saved, they got rid of these people who didn't do anything, when really they got in there, they broke everything, and they're making it so these government agencies are not as useful as they should be and as they were.
And then he spent a bunch of time, you can imagine, sort of the same rally stuff, but then taking credit for border crossings being really low. And he played a hype video for the El Salvadoran prison, and then he said this on that subject.
And the worst of the worst are being sent to a no-nonsense prison in El Salvador. Why don't you?
Of course, without due process, so we don't know if they are the worst of the worst. Let's see here. It's too many clips. I'm falling over clips. He did go after AOC.
Party. They have no candidates. And you know, when they say that Bernie's probably the best they have. By the way, he's about 7 years older than me, more, 8 years older. One thing I got to give him credit, he's a lunatic, but he's still pretty sharp. And he's going around with AOC +3. You know, the +3 follow him. They hang on for little bits. They hang on for nuggets. And they get crowds. They say, oh, our crowds are so much bigger than their crowds. Their crowds are small. If I ever had a crowd like their biggest crowd, they'd say it's over for Trump.
I think it's interesting that I saw AOC respond to that with something like, tell me that we're in his head without telling me that we're in his head. And he couldn't help but blurt out. One of my takeaways too was, so you sort of have the general greatest hits or the worst hits of, Alphonse Capone or whatever. I said that wrong, but you know what I'm saying. He would kill you, and I got indicted more than him, and windmills and water faucets, and I'm doing great on the border, and all those things. And then there was also a little bit of oozing of insecurity. I think you said it when he was initially coming out. Of when he comes out, there is this. He's always had it where he can't really help but indicate his own insecurities. So you can tell he is worried about the fact that they're holding huge rallies. That's the only time he ever criticizes the rallies of someone, like he did with Kamala Harris when she was having big rallies, is when he's intimidated by them. More generally, do you think despite the, that's so ridiculous, AOC and Bernie, so ridiculous. Do you think a lot of Republicans are starting to get a sense that maybe there's something real there with the motivation behind those rallies?
I mean, I think it's why they spend so much time attacking AOC, but their message is really inconsistent. They claim to be for the working class, but then they will attack her for having been a bartender, or attack her because she was a bartender, that means she's stupid, because apparently if you work a service job, you are stupid. So they give very inconsistent messaging to their base. But yeah, I think they're very threatened by AOC, by Bernie. I think that the success of their rallies, of the Fight Oligarchy tour, the number of people that are coming out, they're delivering something that the Democrats are looking for right now. They are looking to people in power to say, where are we going? What is the direction we're taking this? How are we going to fight back? And when you have people like Chuck Schumer who are not stepping up, who are not meeting the moment, you have people like AOC and Bernie who are stepping up and meeting the moment. And you can tell that Donald Trump feels threatened because he still keeps going back and talking about Biden. You know, it's like, you won. You don't need to keep talking about Biden. He keeps bringing up the auto pen, for example, right?
Just what you said, I just really didn't sit right with me. You said that Chuck Schumer wasn't meeting the moment, but you may not have heard he sent a really strongly written letter.
Oh, so glad that was the take.
Yeah.
I love that clip. Oh, we sent a very strong letter. Very powerful.
So powerful.
Trump language. All you do, you're talking. It's all about messaging, not about actually doing something.
Maybe he will be Trump's new pen pal instead of Kim Jong-un. They'll write each other beautiful letters.
I called him Rocket Man. He has a big rocket. Here's Trump again with the insecurity, saying the polls that show he's wildly unpopular are fake.
My solemn duty as commander-in-chief, I have an obligation to do it. Save our country. And that's why we got, despite the fake polls, you know, they do these polls where they interview far more Democrats than Republicans. I saw them over the last few days, and I had them checked out. They interview far more Democrats.
All right, so you get the gist on that. He is, again, with the fake polls. They're always fake polls. When it shows that he came in office and all of his approvals just started plummeting. It is sad, as I've said many times, that it took people seeing what he was saying he was going to do for them to believe that he was going to do the things he was saying they were going to do. And now they don't like it, and we told them they were going to like it, but they don't listen to us. Jesse and Brittany, any closing thoughts?
No, listen, this has been fun. I mean, watching him was not fun. That was a miserable time. But, you know, joining one with another here with this good group of people is it's always nice to see you.
Yeah, it's always fun to be with Luke.
Thank you. All right, everyone subscribe to this channel you're watching on. That may be Jesse's or mine, Jesse Dollemore, Luke Beasley, and then Brittany Page. Search for her channel as well and subscribe to that. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.